They say holidays bring families together, but sometimes they reveal how far apart you've always been. For most of my life, I thought I was just the overlooked one, the afterthought, the quiet giver, the one who made things happen behind the scenes. I thought that if I worked hard enough, gave generously enough, loved unconditionally enough, one day I'd be seen. One day I'd be let into the circle. But this Thanksgiving, I learned the truth. I wasn't invisible. I was excluded on purpose. This isn't just a story about a ruined holiday. It's about betrayal disguised as tradition, about financial abuse dressed up as family expectation, and what happens when the quiet one finally stops playing along. My name is Ava Sinclair. This is the year I stopped paying for a seat at a table where I was never welcome. And this is how I took everything back. Before we dive in, please kindly subscribe, like, and share. It helps us grow and keeps these stories coming your way. And don't forget to drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. We love seeing where our audience is tuning in from around the world. They always said family matters more than anything. But what if your family considers you invisible until it's time for the bill? It was a week before Thanksgiving when it happened. I dropped by my parents' house to drop off a pie I'd made. It was meant to be a small gesture of goodwill, a moment of family connection. Instead, it became the moment that changed everything. The house smelled like cloves and cinnamon, warm and festive. But as I stepped inside, I heard the unmistakable ping of a phone notification. Then another. Then laughter. I paused in the hallway. Through the archway, I saw my mother, Julia, my father, Robert, and my sister, Madeline, huddled around my mother's phone, laughing quietly. I should have turned around and walked in. I should have said something. Instead, I did something I'm not proud of. I listened. Ava'll pay for the caterer like she always does, Madeline was saying. We'll just say the invoice went to the wrong email again. She won't notice, my mother chimed in. She never does. Honestly, it's just easier this way. Then my father laughed. She still thinks she's part of this family. My stomach dropped. They were planning Thanksgiving. A big one. 45 guests. A caterer. A tent rental. And they were doing it all in a group chat I wasn't in. The name? Turkey Day Blueprint. They didn't even bother to hide it. I opened my phone and saw the forwarded invoice. Addressed to me. Due in 3 days. $13,500. I had paid for so many events over the years. Birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas parties. I'd been the silent funder behind the Sinclair family's reputation for lavish gatherings. And yet, I was always the one cropped out of the photos. That night, I went home to my coastal villa and opened a spreadsheet I'd started months ago. A log of every payment, every ignored invitation, every slight. As I added the latest betrayal to the list, I realized something that chilled me. They weren't forgetting me. They were excluding me. And I was done pretending not to notice. Over the next few days, I did what I do best. I watched, listened, and gathered information. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't reply to the forwarded invoice. I let them believe I was still in the dark. It was easier that way. They were careless when they thought I was clueless. The group chat continued buzzing. Madeline uploaded a seating chart and Julia chimed in about centerpieces made with eucalyptus and gold-painted pine cones. Robert asked about hiring a jazz duo. All the details were there. Except me. Then came the guest list. Final list. 45 confirmed, Madeline typed. I read every name. Business partners. Neighbors. Distant cousins. My parents' yoga instructor. The dog groomer. Not mine. I waited an hour, then replied in the chat, I don't see myself on the guest list. Silence for a full minute. Then Julia responded, oh sweetie, we assumed you were too busy this year. We didn't want to burden you. Madeline added, yeah, you're always traveling or working. We figured you'd appreciate the time off. Time off? From my own family? They didn't just exclude me. They made it sound like a favor. That night, I printed every message. Every guest list. Every seating chart. I matched it with past receipts. Thanksgiving 2021, $6,200, paid by me. Christmas 2022, $9,500, paid by me. My name missing from both event photos. This had been going on for years. I called my best friend Maya. They're planning Thanksgiving. I'm not invited, but they expect me to pay. There was silence. Then Maya said, "So don't pay. Throw your own Thanksgiving." Same night. With people who actually love you. It was a spark. Together, we made a list. Friends, mentors, neighbors, colleagues. People who'd shown me love without expecting anything in return. I opened Canva and created a digital invitation. You are invited to a Thanksgiving celebration at Ava's home. A night of gratitude, warmth, and real connection. Come as you are. And I hit send. 3 days before Thanksgiving, the group chat went quiet for a few hours. Then, as if nothing had happened, I received a message directly from my mother. "Hi honey, hope you're well. The caterer needs the $13,500 deposit tomorrow morning. Can you take care of it like last time? We're just so slammed." My heart pounded. There it was. No apology. No discussion. Just a casual request for a 5-figure payment like it was nothing. Like I owed it. I stared at my phone for a long moment, then replied, "Of course, Mom." Red heart. Let them think I was still playing along. But instead of wiring the money, I picked up the phone and called the catering company directly. "Hi, this is Ava Sinclair. I just received an invoice you sent over. Can you confirm the details?" The receptionist was kind. "Yes, Miss Sinclair. We have you listed as the host for the Sinclair Thanksgiving event. 45 guests, plated dinner, full service. The invoice was emailed yesterday. Have my mother or sister spoken with you about payment?" I asked. "Not directly," she replied. "Your name's on the account. We assumed it would come from you as in previous years." That was the final nail. I thanked her, hung up, and added it to my file. Screenshots. Voicemails. Invoices. Everything. Then I turned back to my own Thanksgiving preparations. The RSVPs were rolling in. Maya texted, "We're up to 32 confirmed. It's going to be amazing." I built out a menu with a local chef I adored. He was thrilled to cater something meaningful. We designed a family-style menu: roasted squash, apple stuffing, citrus-glazed turkey, cranberry chutney with rosemary. Comfort food. Real food. And every place setting would have a handwritten note. Not just names, but a short message of gratitude from me. Across town, the Sinclair group chat was back to business. "Do we have enough glassware? Who's doing hair and makeup? Let's rent those Instagram-friendly signs again." They were planning an event. I was preparing a Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day arrived with a chill in the air and a storm brewing far beyond the weather. At the Sinclair estate, preparations began early. A tent was erected in the garden. Valets parked cars with mechanical precision. Tables were set with gold-trimmed place cards and centerpieces tall enough to block conversation. Guests arrived in silk and suits, ready for a curated experience. But by 5:45 p.m., a buzz of confusion began. Where was the food? Servers scrambled. The caterer hadn't shown. Neither had the deliveries. And no one could reach them. Julia was livid, pacing with her phone to her ear. Robert was red-faced, whispering to a neighbor. Madeline kept refreshing her screen. By 6:10 p.m., the truth unraveled. The deposit hadn't been paid. At the same time, across town, soft jazz drifted through the open doors of my villa. Guests arrived to candlelight, the scent of roasted herbs and fresh bread floating in the air. Coats were taken, glasses of mulled wine offered. Maya greeted each person with warmth. And I stood in the middle of it, watching it unfold with a quiet, full heart. The dining room glowed. 35 place settings. Handwritten notes. Bowls of food steaming with love. People hugged, laughed, reconnected. It was everything Thanksgiving should be. At 6:30 p.m., I raised my glass. Thank you all for coming. Tonight is not about tradition. It's about truth. Real connection. Family that we choose, not family that takes us for granted. You are all here because you chose to be. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful. Applause broke. Glasses clinked. Someone wiped away tears. Meanwhile, at the Sinclair home, cold trays were hastily assembled from whatever Julia had in the pantry. Guests whispered. A few quietly left. No one smiled. And that's when the first text from Madeline came through. "Did you cancel the caterer?" I didn't answer. I simply turned off my phone and turned back to my guests. Let them feel what absence really looks like. As dessert was being served, a stunning pumpkin tart with maple cream, I excused myself to the balcony. The sky was painted in hues of deep lavender, the sea below calm and indifferent. I opened my phone and hit post. A carousel of 4 photos uploaded to Instagram. My villa aglow, fairy lights strung overhead. A dining table overflowing with food and laughter. The $13,500 catering invoice marked unpaid. A screenshot of the Sinclair family group chat, complete with my mother's request and the phrase, "She won't even notice." The caption read, "Tonight I chose love, not obligation. I chose honesty, not appearance. For years I paid for a seat at a table where I wasn't even welcome. This year I set my own." Within minutes, comments and DMs poured in. Friends, acquaintances, even strangers began sharing the post. "Proud of you," one wrote. "This hits too close," said another. "You are not alone." Meanwhile, back at the Sinclair estate, the mood turned frosty. My cousin Kendra, who follows me religiously, read the post aloud. Then she showed it to her mother. The chain reaction was instant. Julia saw it next. Her face paled. Robert stood frozen, then muttered something about damage control. Madeline stormed outside and tried to call me. I let it ring. A second post followed an hour later, a video of my toast. It was no longer just a family fallout. It was a reckoning. The days following Thanksgiving were a blur of texts, calls, and headlines. My post had gone semi-viral, especially in our small, tight-knit coastal town. The Sinclair name, once synonymous with upscale social events and sparkling charity galas, was now associated with manipulation and elitist entitlement. At first, I stayed silent. Julia left me 5 voicemails that ranged from tearful to furious. Robert sent one long, carefully crafted text trying to explain how things got out of hand and how none of this was personal. Madeline's messages were far less composed: accusations, denial, passive-aggressive guilt trips. I didn't respond. Instead, I met with my attorney, Margaret Reyes. We reviewed my documentation, invoices, texts, screenshots, and timelines. She examined everything with a steady calm. "This isn't just emotional abuse," she said. "It's financial exploitation. If you want to pursue this publicly or legally, you can." I wasn't ready for court. Not yet. But I was done protecting them. Vendors I'd worked with over the years began reaching out privately. Stories surfaced. Julia had dropped Ava's name to secure reservations, bookings, discounts, all with promises that I would pay later. A florist even forwarded an email chain from a 2021 Christmas order with my name listed as the account holder, even though I hadn't been invited. The most painful part wasn't the money. It was the realization that I had been reduced to a line item in my own family's budget. I published a follow-up post. Not angry, just clear. To those wondering, yes, the events of this week were real. And no, it wasn't the first time. I spent years paying for acceptance that never came. That ends now. I still believe in family, but not at the cost of my self-worth. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. But one message stood out. It came from my cousin Emma, someone I hadn't seen in years. "Thank you for saying what I never could. They did this to my mom too. You're not alone, Ava. Never were." I stared at that message for a long time. And for the first time in a while, I didn't feel alone either. 1 year later, everything was different. Not perfect, but real. And real was all I had ever wanted. As October rolled into November, I began thinking about Thanksgiving again. But not with dread. This time, with purpose. There was no pressure. No expectation. No catering invoice slipped into my inbox under the assumption that I'd foot the bill in silence. This year, I had full agency, and that was more liberating than I ever imagined. I sent out invitations to those who mattered. Not the ones who shared my DNA, but the ones who showed up for me without conditions. Friends, colleagues, even some new connections who had reached out with kindness in the aftermath of last year. The villa felt warmer somehow. Maybe because I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't performing. I was simply creating space for belonging. The menu was simpler. Homemade, even. Maya and I spent an entire Sunday making stuffing from scratch, spilling red wine and laughing until our cheeks hurt. I baked the same pie I once dropped off at my parents' house, this time with joy, not obligation. On Thanksgiving Day, guests arrived casually. Some in jeans, some in slacks. There was no dress code, no parking service, no pretense. Just people who were glad to be there. We went around the table before dinner and said one thing we were thankful for. When it was my turn, I hesitated. Then I said, I'm thankful for the lesson I learned last year. Painful, yes, but necessary. It taught me who I am when I'm not trying to earn love. And it taught me who loves me already, without the performance. Someone squeezed my hand. Another guest raised a glass. And, just like that, the ache that had settled in my chest for years loosened its grip. I never reconciled with my family. Not fully. There were guarded conversations, awkward run-ins at community events. Julia sent a card on my birthday, the first in years. Robert emailed an apology that read more like a PR statement. Madeline never spoke to me again. And that was okay, because I no longer needed their permission to feel whole. I had built my own table, and everyone at it had chosen to be there.